Tensions remain high between China and Vietnam in the South China Sea. Both countries accuse the other of intentionally using their ships to ram one another. The row was sparked after a Chinese-owned company began operating a large oil rig about 150 nautical miles away from Vietnam. Both countries say the waters are within their sovereignty. CCTV's Nathan King joins us live with more. Nathan.
That's right, Elaine. China says it's willing to hold talks with Vietnam on the standoff so long as Vietnam pulls back its ships. And now even the United States is getting involved. At a press conference in Beijing, senior Chinese officials and the CEO of China Oilfield Services Limited explained why the oil rig is legal. They accuse Vietnam of using its ships to try and stop the test drilling.
Any clash that takes place at sea is very dangerous. It could bring tragic consequences, which is why we are calling on the Vietnamese side to stop creating hazards and to help ensure the security of our property and the safety of all our people on board.
Vietnam sees the situation differently, accusing China's Coast Guard of ramming its vessels. Hanoi released this video footage to support its claims and say several have been injured. Vietnam says the rig situated here is on its continental shelf. China claims sovereignty from the nearby Shisha Islands to the east. In English, they're known as the Paracel Islands, and in Vietnamese, they're called Hoang Sa. The islands are also inside the so-called 9-dash line, which is the historical boundary of Chinese maritime claims in the South China Sea. The area is also close to where Vietnam and US oil giant Exxon recently discovered large oil and gas reserves. A $20 billion power plant is planned to run on the fuel from the disputed area. The standoff comes just weeks after 25 Asia-Pacific countries signed a code of conduct for unplanned encounters at sea during the Western Pacific Naval Symposium in Qingdao, China. Hopes are that negotiations can diffuse the current situation.
We are willing to hold discussions with Vietnam in order to find a solution on the basis of negotiation and consultation, but on the condition that Vietnam stops its obstruction of Chinese vessels. Vietnam should remove the obstructing vessels and people on board.
Meantime, Washington is seeking closer ties with former adversary Vietnam and are in Hanoi calling for calm.
Competing sovereignty claims in disputed areas, including in the Paracels, must be dealt with peacefully, must be dealt with diplomatically, and must be dealt with in accordance with international law.
And the international law the US is referring to is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, to which both China and Vietnam have signed up. Now, the treaty does allow for additional protocols for sovereignty claims, which both China and Hanoi have done. It's worth noting, though, that the US has not ratified that treaty, though it does say, Elaine, it operates within the spirit of the law of the sea.
And Nathan, all this comes as the Philippines just arrested a group of Chinese fishermen and signed a new security agreement with the U.S. So are we going to see this more and more often?
The Philippine situation has been tense, with China and the Philippines stepping up action around conflicting claims. And following the signing of the 10-year security agreement between Washington and Manila, we now will see more U.S. troops and ships and aircraft in the area. That has Beijing saying that this will embolden the Philippines to press its claim, knowing that it has the backing of a superpower. But you know what? I want to leave you with this. This is a map of the competing claims in the South China Sea, not just China and Vietnam, but many other nations too. And as you can see, there are many overlapping claims to be worked out and managed. We're expecting claims to be a central topic at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations meeting, ASEAN, to be held in Myanmar coming this weekend. Elaine?
All right. Complicated issue. Nathan King, thanks for that.